everyone, Lou here. After reviewing Homunculus last year, it really opened the door for me to explore more obscure seinen manga of its kind, and I definitely found that in this fantastic crime thriller manga. Now for those who don't know, I love crime thrillers, so this was such a damn treat to read. Today, let's talk about Adabana. Quick warning that this manga is not for anyone under the age of 18. This manga also tackles some pretty serious themes of stalking, abusive relationships, child exploitation, etc. So if any of that bothers you or triggers you in any way, then please don't read this manga and be very cautious when watching this video. Adabana is a manga created by Non in March 2020 to June 2021. From what I can tell, because her previous works only have a couple of chapters translated or hardly anything at all, she's an author who likes to explore women's embracement of spicy times, but then also the shame and expectations society puts on women to stay pure, and that getting jiggy with it is a bad thing, which I never understood because before advancements and that kind of stuff, how the fuck else are we supposed to be here? Anyway, a good example is her more recent manga Pole Star, about a young woman who wants to be a pole dancer for the art of it rather than for the male gaze. She hasn't written much manga besides like 4, so I don't have too many examples, which is a shame because I actually really love her artwork. There's something so down to earth about it mixed with a beautiful modern shoujo style. It's just really beautiful to me. This manga, however, is sadly super obscure, even after someone else did a video trying to promote it. Like, this manga is officially translated into Spanish only from what I can tell online, and any English translations you see is done by a small group of fans. Though watch as I say this, a manga distribution company announces an official English translation. Anyway, the manga received some pretty good reception, though I noticed there were a few people who either missed the point or were taking certain visuals too literal. Some were valid though, and I'll definitely get to those criticisms. For now, let's get started with the story. Mizuki Aikawa is a quiet and shy girl who has extremely strict parents and doesn't have the best grades due to the stress her parents put her under. Other than that, she seems to be your normal Japanese high school student until she goes to the police and admits to killing the girl on the news whose severed hand was recently found. This completely stuns the entire station that a girl her age was capable of this, and at first she tells the police it was due to an argument. However, she then admits that Mako, the girl who was murdered, was actually her best and only friend. We then get a flashback to their friendship where Mako was super extroverted and bubbly, who made Mizuki feel at ease because she was someone who actually cared about her compared to her parents and didn't mind that she wasn't as energetic. However, Mako's life wasn't easy either, as she lost her mom at a young age, her dad's physically disabled so he can't work, and she has to work for her uncle's restaurant to just pay the bills. One day, Mako asks Mizuki if she'd like to do what is basically a bootleg of Disneyland called Tokyo Magical Resort. I would say not a dreamland, but the visuals definitely tell me that's Tokyo Disneyland. The two promise to go for graduation. However, Mizuki feels guilty she can't pay for her own ticket because her parents don't allow her to have any fun or extracurricular activities. However, Mako says that she's just gonna work twice as hard for her uncle, which makes Mizuki feel like she'll decide to work for Mako's uncle too. Except it turns out Mako's uncle is a disgusting you-know-what who offers money to Mizuki in exchange for images of her in a swimsuit. However, Mizuki gets cold feet and says no for obvious reasons, where Mako's uncle corners her and nearly essays her in a recorded video for the dark web or something like that, where Mizuki had no choice but to kill him in self-defense. This leaves the police even more confused because she has now confessed to 2 different murders. Mizuki also leads detectives to Mako's head, but won't lead detectives to Mako's body until later. I don't know why, that's a little weird, but not gonna question it. Plot reasons, I guess. Back to the flashback, Mako confesses that her actual job for her uncle was basically him making CP of her, but she never thought he'd do anything to hurt Mizuki until this moment. They go back to the kitchen and get the camera, where Mako suggests they go to the police, and she reported as self-defense, but Mizuki feels too disgusted and ashamed to go to the police and confesses she was nearly SA'd, so they both decide to delete the footage and hide the uncle's body instead. Where this ties in with the manga's biggest theme of society making women feel ashamed and tainted for experiencing SA, as though it's their fault when we all know it isn't a victim's fault, especially in teenage girls, where they're told they're basically worth no more than garbage if they lose their quote purity. So Mizuki and Mako delete the attempted SA footage and hide the uncle's body in an old abandoned well next to the restaurant, and he's only reported missing until Mizuki tells the police about the uncle's body. Going back to the present, a man named Suji, at least I think that's his name, I'm pretty sure that might actually be his law firm, but I could be wrong, is Mizuki's defense attorney. At first, Mizuki tries to tell him that she doesn't need one, but he insists to see if this was a real mental break or this girl was genuinely just evil. We then get a flashback again to about 3 days after the murder of the uncle, where Mako isn't doing so hot after the murder of her uncle because on top of that, her ex-boyfriend has been stalking her this entire time and she's terrified he knows about the murder. Yuki is Mako's ex-boyfriend who is a college student, and although that usually means he's in his mid-20s, he's actually only 18, so he and Mizuki are thankfully only like 16 and 18 or 18 and 20, I think, at this point in the flashback. I say thankfully because the last thing we need is a teenage girl getting groomed by a man in his mid-20s. Good gosh. So, to protect Mako from a very clearly shitty ex-boyfriend, Mizuki purposefully skipped school to spend more time with her and keep her safe by always being by her side at internet cafes, libraries, and the park. They even had sleepovers at internet cafes, which I keep forgetting is a thing you can do in Japan. The dude was still stalking Mako though, and even began to follow Mizuki to her house, and took pictures of the restaurant the uncle worked at to try and find where Mako is, because this dude is literally every abusive ex-horror story I've heard all wrapped up into one. Mizuki actually attempts to murder Yuki when she sees that he was dangerously close to finding the uncle's body, but in an extremely tense moment her cell phone rang from Mako. This makes Mizuki clearly have to pretend to be friendly with Yuki to both investigate and to steer him away from the truth. She decides to test the waters by telling him to stop stalking Mako, where he immediately goes into nice guy mode by saying he's just worried for her because he heard rumors her uncle was a bad man and just wants to protect her. I mean, anyone who's experienced shitty people knows he's full of shit. Except in the present, Mizuki tells her lawyer that she was actually jealous of Mako, that she had someone, quote, dedicated to her, as though Mizuki was actually trusting Yuki. Flashing back, despite Mako's protest, she tells Yuki that she murdered Mako's uncle, which Yuki suspiciously knows that Mako's uncle recorded CP of Mako, so he proposes that they go to the restaurant to find his computer and delete all the footage to, quote, protect Mako. After claiming to delete the videos, and there were a lot of them, he starts kinda coming on to Mizuki, which sends her into a trauma flashback to the point where she thankfully swats him away. However, Mako saw them together and is terrified her best friend has fallen for Yuki and are both going to go behind her back and blame her for the murder. However, Mizuki tells the lawyer that this caused an argument where she may have killed Mako in a fit of rage and later attempted to dismember her body. However, when Mizuki walks away with a smile, it makes the lawyer confused. To him, the story makes sense up until the murder itself. She keeps changing her story and her motive, which doesn't make sense to him. The lawyer then goes to a fellow lawyer friend to help out with this case because he's genuinely stumped and believes Mizuki is hiding something from him that he can't figure out what. He believes she'll feel more comfortable talking to a woman, so he asks his fellow lawyer friend to help as she is a woman. Another thing is that the police tested the knife Mizuki brought to them and claimed was the murder weapon, but Mizuki's blood wasn't found at all in the knife, which, while yes, it could have been wiped down, trace evidence can still exist even when it's wiped down, so the knife clearly wasn't the murder weapon. This leaves the public to believe that maybe Mizuki is a cover-up by the police for the stalker, as the lawyers suggest that if the stalker did this, then the police would get slammed like hell for not taking the stalking seriously. Funny how in either side of the world, police just never seem to take stalking seriously. The lady lawyer interviews Mizuki and is starting to believe that Mizuki is actually in love with Yuki, and that's why she's covering for him, hence why she keeps denying there was any intimate pictures or videos of Mako taken. This makes both lawyers try to interview Yuki to see what's up, where the lady lawyer just knows this dude is a walking red flag by his soulless ass eyes. When they talk to him, this asshole even jokes about him being the killer and leaves a one-night stand out in the snow only in her undergarments while they talk. He then brags about how this was all Mizuki's fault and that he had every right to stalk Mako because they were in a quote serious relationship, which automatically makes me think this dude definitely had something to do with Mako's death. The lady lawyer tries to ease Mizuki and tells her that if she's covering for anyone, she can tell her. However, Mizuki denies again, but we see she starts laughing with the other inmates. At first I thought it was because her mother disowned her and she was happy because her parents suck, but I see this was definitely foreshadowing. We then get a flashback to how Mizuki and Mako first became best friends, where they were actually childhood friends who lived nearby but kind of drifted apart for a while, becoming best friends again in high school despite Mizuki being ostracized and a bit of a loner. However, as we know, Mako's home life was just as horrible, as she was forced to make CP for her uncle so she could pay off her dad's debts from the accident that took her mom's life, I think, and her dad's mobility. We also learned that the reason Mizuki's parents are so strict is because her dad is a member of the Japanese diet, so they had kids so her dad could have a successor. So Mizuki actually had an older brother who the parents drilled into, to the point where it left him severely depressed and he took his own life. Mizuki blames herself that she couldn't help her brother, and feels even worse that her parents are just using her as a backup plan instead of grieving for their own son. However, Mizuki wants to be a writer, which Mako encourages, while Mako always wanted to be a dancer, but feels like she can't due to her dad's death. We also see how she met Yuki at a convenience store, and while he was initially a Prince Charming to her, even apparently going to her uncle to make him stop taking pictures of her once she told him about the photos her uncle takes of her, it was all bullshit when he was actually taking secret pictures and videos of Mako in their most intimate moments. Once Mako found out, she was immediately disturbed. Even worse, Yuki had the fucking audacity to tell her that she should do adult films with him. Like, dude, what the fuck? Oh yeah, prior to this, he sent a dead crow to her, so that's fun. Real piece of work, I swear. So she obviously tries to break up with him, but Yuki then threatens to leak the videos and pictures of her as revenge porn, which isn't illegal in Japan for those curious. I know it's definitely illegal where I live in California, but not every country is coming up with the times on this stuff. After she does try, he proceeds to threaten her over and over again, even bringing her to his car to pretend to talk, where he then threatens her and essays her. She's so desperate to break up with him despite his threats that she even offers to pay him to leave her alone, which he says she should pay him 3 million yen, which is about $19,000. Gotta love those conversion rates. He threw a complete tantrum that she'd pay to leave him, but she was incredibly smart and recorded it to share with the police, especially the line where he shouted he'd kill her. Which, if you know where this is going, the police didn't do shit. It doesn't help that Yuki comes from a lot of money and it has some affiliations with the Yakuza, so he was able to somehow threaten the police into not investigating the crime, while telling Mako that if she tries to report him again, he'll kill her. He also makes her cut her wrists to show her loyalty to him. Oh my gosh, this manga makes me want to punch Yuki in the face every minute he's in a panel. So she tries to get her mind off of it by delivering for her uncle's restaurant, where a guy says he recognizes her from the pictures her uncle sells, specifically mentioning the videos Yuki recorded of her. So that means that instead of telling the uncle to stop, Yuki actually made a deal with the uncle for money where he'd record videos and pictures of Mako in secret to sell to the uncle. This makes Mako fly into a rage, screaming into the night, where it gets worse when she sees her best friend nearly essayed by her uncle. In a shocking twist, Mizuki never killed the uncle, but Mako did, where Mizuki took the fall to protect her best friend. As it turns out, it was Mako's idea to delete the videos because she didn't want Mizuki to be viewed the same way she does. The other truth is that Mizuki found the laptop the uncle had of every photo and video ever taken of Mako since her uncle started abusing her, including the videos and photos that Yuki took in secret of him and Mako together. Mizuki doesn't immediately assume Yuki was distributing the photos and videos, but pretty quickly assumes she realizes he and the uncle had some sort of connection. While Mako may not want the videos and pictures of her known to the public, Mizuki does want revenge, as she holds a strong sense of justice after her parents pushed her brother to unalive himself, but nothing was done about it. This is why Mizuki was pretending to be buddy-buddy with Yuki when she told the lawyer. She was pretending to be a helpless friend who killed the uncle in self-defense to make him erase the evidence to protect Mako's public image of innocence. However, she did make copies just in case she needed proof for later. When she hears Yuki's less than shocked reaction towards the videos of Mako, Mizuki immediately pieces together that her uncle and him were selling CP of Mako, and not gonna lie, if I were her, this would be the second murder committed in this restaurant. She's not stupid though, and knows Yuki has backups of everything too, so she knows she has to get buddy-buddy with him to get him close enough to delete all that footage. She's also pretty horrified to find a knife in his glove box, which we know he threatened Mako with. Another truth we learn is the conversation that Mizuki told the police and lawyers was when she actually killed her. It was actually a very deep conversation where Mizuki tells Mako that her plan is to pretend to get close to Yuki to get him to erase all the pictures and videos of her to protect her. This is where we get hammered in the themes of the manga, in that Mako feels dirty and tainted because she was a teenager who was abused by people who were supposed to love her. Glad that at least her best friend could have her innocence while she feels vile and disgusting. It's a sad fact that many who experience what Mako has end up feeling dirty and tainted, almost blamed for the abuse instead of treating it with empathy as a victim of abuse solely because they lost their quote purity. People aren't fucking sparkly rocks here, and I'll never understand purity culture existing this far into the future. Sorry to go on a teensy bit of a rant, it's just that it's 2025 and I don't understand how people can hold up these views and ideals from fucking 200 years ago. Okay, so back to the story. Well, Mizuki is heartbroken to know how horrible Mako feels about herself, and Mako is kind of at rock bottom emotionally as her trauma and lack of guilt in the murder keeps bubbling. Yuki finds her. The creepy fucker installed a tracking device on her phone, hands her a knife, and drops a bombshell. Mako's dad knew the entire time what the uncle was doing, and it was actually his idea to sell his own daughter for money. Yuki tells her that there's nothing for her in this world anymore, and that she should just die already, otherwise she's his forever. Feeling the trauma bubble up, Yuki's torment, and just everything else, Mako sadly follows Yuki's horrible suggestion. In her last moments, Mako regrets what she did and tries to call Mizuki for help, only to be found too late by her. The truth? Mako was never murdered, technically. She took her own life because of Yuki's emotional abuse. Mizuki unlocks Mako's phone and finds countless messages from Yuki, realizing that he'll never be punished for this because of Japanese law regarding pushing someone to unalive themselves. It's then that she realizes that he needs to be punished, and to protect Mako's reputation, so she decides she'll stage this as a murder to get Yuki caught. So, as horrifying as it is, she does stab and dismember Mako to make it look like she was murdered, cutting off her wrists so the police don't know she unalived herself. Knowing Yuki is a fucking freak who records everything, she comes to him with proof that Mako is dead by presenting her dead hand to him. She convinces him to delete the videos and pictures of Mako because the police will investigate his stuff for the stalking as per protocol in a murder, and then tells Mizuki that he wasn't a distributor, just her uncle and father were, so they have all the proof while he doesn't. This is true when Mizuki threatens Mako's father to tell her if he knew anything and distributed anything, where he confesses he did, and that his daughter should be grateful that he did? Oh my gosh, Mako's family is fucking disgusting. Back to the present, the lawyer is almost ready to give up, but he's really pushing to get Mizuki to tell the truth about all this, especially when he finds a witness confessing she met with Yuki more times than she confessed. The lady lawyer doesn't understand why he's so damn dedicated to what is basically an open and shut case, where an assistant explains that his oldest daughter would have been around Mizuki's age and was killed by a fellow teenager in a traffic accident, so he feels a little personal about this one. Personally, I really like the lawyer guy. He reminds me a lot of the kind and dedicated detectives you'll see in those thrillers who just wants the truth no matter what. Both lawyers find the dashcam footage from the cab Mizuki brought to visit Yuki, which was at the time of Mako's murder. This incriminates Yuki as being involved in Mako's murder, so the lawyers believe he's involved, and Mizuki is covering it all up for an unknown reason. The lawyer lady actually found that Yuki had recorded the conversation with Mizuki, thanks to ramming his car and a bit of sneaking, and was able to use it in court. However, Mizuki still refuses to confess Yuki's involvement up until the court date, as to make it look like she's covering for him because he is involved in the murder, so he'll actually be punished. She confesses in court about Yuki's involvement in the murder, which destroys his social reputation and makes him have to lawyer up to protect himself in court. Her new story in court was that Yuki murdered Mako and she is pretending to be madly in love with him, so she covered up the murder for him. It helps that Yuki kinda left shit open for himself when he gave Mako the knife in the first place, and Mizuki was able to use that to her advantage to incriminate him. This leads to a pretty intense court scene where Yuki is trying to tell the court the truth, that Mako self-deleted, and Mizuki is covering it all up to pin the murder on him, but thanks to nature and Mizuki's cover-up, any proof that Mako self-deleted is forensically impossible to tell. Yuki's wording and past behavior only makes him look more guilty, even if his fingerprints aren't on the knife anymore, and it causes him to have a full-blown tantrum in court to the point where his ass might as well wear a necklace saying guilty on it. I mean, it's so bad that Mizuki starts laughing in court because of the fact that he's making this so unbelievably easy. Even though they found the knife and the rest of Mako's body, Yuki couldn't be charged with her murder, but instead possession of illegal substances and stalking, which the former is surprisingly a nasty charge to get in Japan. Seriously, using illegal substances is practically a murder charge over there. Meanwhile, Mizuki was still convicted of Mako's murder and concealment of evidence, and was given somewhere between 9 to 14 years. If you're wondering why so little, she was 17 and the courts believed her manipulation story, so she wasn't able to get life. I couldn't figure out an exact time frame, but I believe about 10 years later, Mizuki is freed from prison with the lawyer guy offering to take her anywhere she wants to go. We get an update on Yuki and Mako's father, too, by the way. Yuki basically is in and out of rehab after becoming addicted to some kind of unknown medication, and his life is in shambles. Mako's father died of a heart attack just before Mizuki was released and deleted all evidence of the CP of Mako, so this means Mizuki's second plan of all records of Mako's pictures and videos being deleted happened too. She has to go to the bootleg Disneyland, and so the lawyer takes her. There, the lawyer tells her that he realized Mako was never murdered and instead unalived herself. He basically explains her entire plan, but doesn't understand why she would sacrifice herself like that, which Mizuki explains it's because Mako was her best friend, and she would do literally anything for her just as Mako did for her. The lawyer is honestly pretty forgiving, knowing that Mizuki didn't have anyone to help her figure out how to get justice and revenge, and the lawyer lady discusses how horrible society is if a teenage girl had to do all this by herself. He then gives Mizuki a keychain Mako had planned to give to her, where Mizuki asks to walk around the park by herself for a moment to have a sort of personal closure and grieve her best friend at Mako's happiest place. In her mind, she imagines what it would have been like for them to go together, where she mentally says goodbye to her best friend. Thus ends Adabana. I thought this story was honestly brilliant and really thrilling to read. I love how it explored how helpless both girls feel in their situation, the trauma that it puts on someone like Mako, and the entire mystery of what really happened was honestly so nail-biting. The court scene was just awesome too, and let me tell you, I cheered when Yuki got his ass put in prison. That said, my only critique is I found there were some contradictory paneling where some opening chapter covers were spicy in nature of Mako, or some shots of Mako being forced to take pictures looked a little too glamorized, which contradicts the whole point of the damn manga, but the art style maybe just makes it look that way because the art style is so pretty. If it were me, I would have probably structured the paneling to look less appealing and more uncomfortable and horrifying. Maybe abstract visuals to convey that. Just me though, because this is the creator's 4th work ever made, so I'm a lot less critical knowing she doesn't have a lot of writing experience to be more established as a mangaka. This is a pretty short story too. It doesn't hang on the mystery and doesn't overstay its welcome. The plot is a total Goldilocks for me, where it's just right. Oh my gosh, I am in love with this artwork. It's a perfect blend of semi-real, shoujo-esque, and some really incredible shots to show the horror, anger, sadness over a situation. I especially love the way Non draws eyes. There's something so emotional in the eyes in certain scenes that just really expresses the character's emotion, even more than the facial expression. I also love the way the creator draws hair too. It's drawn so dainty and yet has a bit of a character to it in its own individual strands to almost convey the mental state of a character. The backgrounds were also really nice. Some say a bit too realistic, but I thought it fit right at home with the art style since it is somewhat realistic. I say somewhat because, you know, it's still anime-like, but there's still a realism in the way the clothes, lips, and eyebrows are drawn. Which, can I just say, as someone who likes to draw my characters with thicker eyebrows than just the simple line, I really appreciate the thicker eyebrows in this style because I personally feel like it's more expressive and just a really nice touch. I also like that it's not just the female characters who are drawn really nicely, but the male characters too. Though, I feel like this author definitely has a thing for the ugly bastards trope, if you know what I mean. Somehow, I swear I can always tell what fetish a mangaka has just by how many times they draw a specific thing. In this case, the uncle getting a little too excited is put way too much for my liking. I wrote in my notes for this that the art style reminds me of Death Note, but now that I look at it, I think it's because Yuki looks like Light Yagami. I kinda wonder if that was done on purpose to make him more punchable. Either that or just me because Light Yagami is very punchable to me. Overall, I give the artwork a solid 10 out of 10. I think Non is gonna be one of my favorite mangaka if her art style keeps up this gorgeous flow. I've always been a big fan of thrillers, especially crime thrillers. There's something about a whodunit or watching someone investigate a case that doesn't make any sense that just scratches my brain and leaves me completely glued to the screen in awe. As a massive fan of that, I'd absolutely say this is an incredible manga. Not just for its genre, but also for its themes too. It's not anything new since there's obviously a metric fuck ton of manga that tell these themes, and some better than others, but it's still refreshing, you know? At least one that handles it relatively respective. Like I always say about media from Japan, it's a 1 step forward, 2 steps back kind of thing. That'll be it for this video though. You guys let me know down below what you thought of Adabana. Did you love it? Did you hate it? As always, let me know down below. Hey guys, thanks for watching! If you liked the video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing if you're new. If any of you would like to help support my channel in any possible way, my Ko-fi page is down below in the description, along with all of my social media. For any subscribers, new or old, who'd like to help with video ideas, or maybe just want to talk about anime or something, I have a fan server linked down below. See you next time!